All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Verify with Confidence, why standardized testing is essential for guarding compliance and safety assurance. My name is Kyle Nobley. I'm the Senior Research and Innovation Engineer with Forefront Engineered Solutions. I'm also the Chairman of the Protective Guarding Manufacturers Association, or ProGMA, who's hosting the seminar today. ProGMA is an industry group within MHI. We bring together 23 of the industry's leading suppliers of fixed protective guarding products with a mission of promoting safety, security, and guarding for people, products, and facilities. We educate about protective barrier and guarding solutions through industry standards, best practices, and of course, seminars like the one we're hosting today. On screen, you can see all the different companies who's members of ProGMA and their booth numbers at MODEX today. Please visit us at our booths if you have any questions or want to discuss adding safety products to your facility. I'll leave the slide up again at the end so you can take as much time as you need to look it over. Presenting with me today, I have Dave Doleski, who's the Senior Vice President of Sales in the US for ASAFE, and Ray Niemeyer, who's Vice President of Sales for SpaceGuard Products. Each of us is going to discuss one of the 3 different ANSI standards that ProGMA has written and published. The discussion today is going to be centered around the standardized testing of 3 different categories of safety products: steel mesh containment panels, industrial guardrail barriers, and topple barriers. Before these standards were introduced, there was no common standard that could be used to evaluate and compare all the different products in the market. Performance claims couldn't be verified, and there was no data to back up any of the claims. The industry eventually reached a breaking point, and things needed to change. ProGMA took on the challenge and wrote 3 ANSI-approved standards to create standardized tests to give everyone the ability to compare products manufactured by anyone. To discuss the first of these 3 standards, I invite Ray Niemeyer of SpaceGuard Products to take over.
Testing. All right, it works. Again, my name's Ray with SpaceGuard Products. I'm going to be reviewing the ANSI MH31.1 industry standard or wire mesh containment panels on the backside of rack. Importance of our group getting together to develop a standard was between netting, attaching unframed mesh to the back of rack, unit loads, boxes fall out, and there was never a sense of what was good, what was bad, and what was misapplied. So a group of manufacturers that make these types of products got together to develop the industry testing for impact to make sure that you as the user community can ensure when you buy the product and you buy something that has gone through the testing, it's going to meet your requirement to keep your operation safe. So with the testing of the guidelines, we want to make sure the uniform load is going to be on stage, going to be contained, as well as setting the test criteria that the manufacturers have to go through to provide that consistency and reliability for you. What is a vertical mesh containment panel? Welded wire and angle frame mounted to the back of rack to go vertically from the floor to top of the rack, or it can be segregated to different areas on the back of the rack. Key benefits. Well, you want to maintain that unit load safely and securely inside your rack. Make sure it doesn't fall off below. You want to keep your pedestrian walk aisles and traffic aisles safe, product falling in the way, injuring employees or equipment. Want to stay OSHA compliance from a safety perspective. You also, installing this in certain key areas of your operation, you're providing additional safety awareness for your employees and for your operation. Product also allows for light and sprinkler systems to be able to put out fires in the event that fire would jump out inside your rack system. And for NFPA, it allows sprinkler system to put it out. OSHA 29, as I'm going to call it for short, is important to make sure when you're stacking material inside your rack system that it's blocked, interlocked, otherwise secured. Most operations, if you have hand pick or pick lift systems and you're picking items out of boxes, cut the shrink wrap, boxes are loose, and that has the tendency to be the dangers with products falling out. So our impact testing is a pretty rigorous one. The engineering committee put together. We have a strict protocol that we all follow to test not only the panels, the mesh, but also brackets that attach to your rack uprights. So first and foremost, we're looking to make sure when we perform that test that not only is the panel and the mesh going to perform and meet and exceed what the requirements are, but also your attachment brackets. Because if the bracket fails, everything else comes down. So the test method criteria that we as the manufacturers of these products go through is a specific pendulum design as protocol. With the impact of a 350-pound weight, it's used to hit the center of the panel, as well as the second testing is to hit the panel at the edge, close to the bracket, make sure at both locations the product's going to meet and exceed expectation. The test report provides consistency, reliability, and information we as manufacturers and dealers and distributors can provide to the customer for safety review and understanding. We have proper documentation if that type of information would like to be asked for. It also validates that what you're looking at is going to be a good quality product for your company to be able to put in. And it allows you to take the information, compare other vendors, are they meeting in the test criteria or not? A lot of companies are not currently doing it. And with that, we can provide proven performance with the products that have gone through testing. I'd like to use the word verify. We've got validation again of performance, evidence of compliance through documentation, real world testing goes on to represent what your forklifts and unit loads are doing every day in the rack system. From an industry perspective, we're all in alignment, provide quality product for you, provides accountability and trust, make sure you're buying the right product for your application, ultimately giving you a confident buying decision. With it, I'm going to turn this over to Dave so we can talk about guardrail testing.
All right. Thank you, Ray. Appreciate that. As mentioned earlier, my name is Dave Dulesky, and I'm with ASAFE. For my purpose of the session, we're going to talk about the ANSI MH31.2 specification. So ANSI, American National Standards Institute, right? So this is a U.S. standard. And what we're going to focus on are guardrail protections for that. As Ray just discussed, mesh panel containment is a little bit different. So first off, just a quick question. I'm not going to quiz anybody, but show of hands, who's familiar with what a joule is? Anyone? All right, we got a couple hands showing. All right, so for those unaware, a joule is a measurement of energy, right? Quite simply, it measures mass and it measures speed. And in doing so, it's going to be able to identify the amount of impact, the intensity of the impact. The more joules, higher the impact. The fewer the joules, obviously, it's less intensive. And from a guardrail perspective, we measure joules against how much force can a barrier withstand before it fails, right? So very simplistic, but it's very important that we know this, all right? Another question for the audience. Who knows how to calculate a joule? All right, there's a little bit of voodoo science in this one, in my personal opinion. So joules are measured by a factor of 1/2 mass times velocity squared. All right, also, since it's a scientific measurement, we got to go into metric system here. So we're looking at kilograms and kilometers per hour. Now, the beauty of the whole standard, this ANSI standard that's been published, is you don't have to worry about how to calculate payload, ANSIs, or excuse me, and joule ratings and such, this is going to do it for you. So as we go into the specification, right, what does a failed barrier mean? You may have seen images like this in your warehouse. That's the easy fixes, right? A guardrail is damaged, you can replace it. However, it could certainly mean more to your facility. Injury or loss of life, operational downtime, maybe it's damaged the building. You got to do more costly repairs in that respect. You also risk not having the right barrier or any barrier in place in that matter. You also risk having exposure to some financial or even legal in that respect. What the MHI standard has done is it's simplified this into a matter of 10 simple tests. All right, 3 different speeds, 3 miles per hour, 5 miles per hour, 7 miles per hour, and then everything ranging from 9,000 to 20,000 pounds, excuse me. It's published a standard to have a standardized test across all manufacturers in an accredited third-party laboratory, providing a very concrete evidence that this barrier passed a test it's expected to, that it's rated against. All right, so for the likes of yourselves, you now have verification and validation that what you're buying does what it says it does. All right, so how does this work? Well, as I just mentioned, 3 different speeds, 3 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour, 7 miles per hour at different weight settings. And the testing is done, and this is very important, on 2 different impacts. All right, it measures the impact of the sled hitting on the post. It also measures the impact of the sled hitting on the rail. It does this because not all systems are created equally. Not too long ago, I was actually at a facility in Indiana for a 3PL for a pet food manufacturer. And their fork truck driver actually crashed through the rails of their barrier, protecting the actual employee kind of rest area, dining area. Luckily for her, she crashed through the barrier. That's not the lucky part. Luckily for her, she crashed through the dining part and went into the employee cafeteria area. Fortunately, no one was hurt in there, but if she'd gone about 3 feet to the right, she would have actually crashed into their entire electrical control room, and that could have been catastrophic. And it's all because the safety barrier did not have the proper testing and certification rating for the actual rail impact. So what ANSI does, it's measuring the impact at both the post and the rail, and anything more of a permanent degradation of that guardrail, more than 24 inches is considered a failure. You just saw in the video that just played here, it failed. It moved 6 inches. That's considered a pass. All right, it did what it was supposed to do. It stopped the forklift. All right, why was this standard needed? Well, quite simply, up until now, all manufacturers, and ASAFE included, all manufacturers are doing our own independent, or our own testing, excuse me. Not necessarily the same setup, not the same controlled environment, maybe not measuring by the same standards. Am I hitting the guardrail at 90 degrees straight on? Am I hitting the guardrail at 45 degrees and extrapolating what a 90-degree hit would mean? So very uncontrolled setup. Now, very straightforward process. Again, independent labs doing the testing, following the specification of different speeds, different weights, all at a 90-degree angle, all impacting both the post and the rail itself. So, what does this mean for you? Why have we done this? Well, first off, should be fewer incidents and disruptions, right? As opposed to just doing a compliance of check the box, yes, I put a guardrail in the location necessary. Now you can put the guardrail in with the right specification, which should hopefully lead to less maintenance, less replacements, and hopefully less disruptions and injuries to employees. Number 2, lower lifetime costs. You're not constantly replacing guardrail, and you put the right specification in at the first time, then that should be able to last. Lastly, greater confidence amongst your employees, right? Studies show that happier employees, if they know they're feeling protected, they know they're taken care of, they're going to work longer and be happier in your workplace and be more productive. So, what's next for you? First off, start talking to your vendors and your suppliers about MH31.2 ratings for their guardrail. All right? Second, start leading the change, all right? Putting the right product in the right place. Again, not just ticking a box of, oh, need to put guardrail in here for this pathway. Make sure it's actually designed to the right specification for the right weight, the right speed to provide the performance that's necessary. All right, shift from that. Make your workplace safety, and at the last, lead that change. Let's do what's right for our facilities and our employees. Oops, went the wrong way. All right, turn it over to Kyle. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dave. I'm now going to take us through the newest of the ProGMA written standards. This is MH31.3 test method for topple barriers released just last year. So topple barriers can be thought of as basically a tall fence. They're engineered barriers meant to catch and hold any kind of stacked product to prevent it from falling over and to give you the opportunity to remove the toppled product safely. They're generally installed around areas where products such as paper rolls and pallets or other products have been stacked on each other to maximize space. They prevent those stacked products from falling onto people, other products, or machinery, or causing a domino effect in your facility as product falling collides with other stacked products. As you can tell, it's extremely important that these barriers are actually designed, manufactured, and tested to be able to do their intended jobs. So topple barriers are a very important product to have if you have stacked product in your facility. They prevent product from falling, protect workers, protect equipment, and help ensure compliance with OSHA. They're also a very visual barrier in your facility that's going to help promote and improve safety awareness overall. They generally stand well above any of the other safety barriers and serve as a visual reminder that the facility takes safety very seriously. I mentioned OSHA compliance. So OSHA, this is the same OSHA compliance as Ray talked about earlier, 29 CFR 1910.176 subsection B. Materials stored in tiers shall be stacked, blocked, interlocked, or otherwise secured to prevent sliding or collapse. Topple barriers provide the blocking as required by OSHA, and thus are a very important tool for ensuring OSHA compliance in your facility if you have any kind of stacked products. So how are the barriers tested? The standard defines two different tests that we as manufacturers are to perform on topple barriers to ensure that they're safe and effective for your facility. For the first test, we're going to anchor the test piece in place in the exact same way that it's meant to be installed at your facility. And we're going to attach a winch to the topmost rail in the middle. This is generally the worst case loading scenario for a topple barrier. And for the first test, we're going to pull the barrier to its maximum rated capacity, and we're going to hold it there for 16 hours. The 16-hour hold test was basically designed to simulate a load that's fallen at the end of a shift, but is not noticed until the next morning. So it's holding it overnight. We're ensuring that the barrier can keep that load held in place until a worker is able to come and safely unstack it. So while the load is fully applied, we're going to measure the maximum deflection. We're going to use this number to ensure that barriers are installed far enough away from the things that they're protecting. We also measure the no-load permanent deflection after the load has been released. This number is used to determine if the barrier has recovered enough to be used again or if it needs to be replaced after a topple has happened. I mentioned two tests, so there's a second test. We're going to get a new test piece and once again anchor it in place the exact same way as before. We attach a winch in the exact same spot as before and the exact same manner, but this time we're going to increase the winch pull by 10% loads of the maximum. We're not just going to go straight to the max, we're going to increase it 10% increments, and then at each 10% increment, we're going to take a deflection measurement. So the reason we're taking those deflection measurements is to create a deflection curve to be able to perform, to compare the performance of different barriers between different manufacturers and different types, between the polymers and the steels and all the different materials that we're using to manufacture these. And it also gives real world information on how a barrier is going to react when a load does fall on it. Last thing is what to look for. The standard defines a test summary form that's to be filled out by the manufacturer testing the barrier. This is going to give you the form that you can put side by side with between the different manufacturers and compare their how their topple barriers have performed. Standard forms are the most consistent way to be able to compare performance between different manufacturers and make sure that the one you choose is the one that's actually needed in your facility. So you're going to ask the barrier manufacturer for the ANSI test summary forms when you're evaluating your topple barriers. So today we discussed 3 different ANSI testing standards and what those standards do for you as the customer. So standardized testing improves confidence in the product you're buying. The tests produce actual real-world data that you can trust. They're designed to simulate a real-world event, but in a controlled environment so we can measure the results and learn from them. Testing also verifies the performance of the safety barriers and ensures that the product you're buying is safe. Key things we want you to take away from this today are that testing ensures product integrity under real conditions. It protects against legal and financial exposure. It enables fair comparisons across suppliers. It drives innovation for continuous product improvements, and it builds market confidence by validating the products you're buying.